Hello and welcome back to Bible, Brats, and Brew with your hosts, Brandon and Greg. In today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the tabernacle and some of the things that go along with it. What's symbolic? What's it all involved? And this is going to cover, well, a whole lot of the rest of the book of Exodus. We're going to start with chapter 24. We're going to work through 25, 26, 27, 28. Hopefully get into 30. So just join in with us on this episode. All right, Brandon, it's been a while since we've last done one of these.
Yeah, we needed to get these done again.
Yeah.
We need to drink all these root beers.
Root beers and brats.
There we go.
Hey, does real quick question for you. Does fresh juice count as a brew if I make it?
No.
All right.
I don't know about that.
Well, I just wanted to ask a question because I really like it. So.
Do we need to switch to juices? Is that the plan? Because
No.
I'm gonna respectfully keep my root beers.
No. I was just curious if that would be considered a brew since it's being made.
I mean, like I guess you can brew a lot of things. Like you can brew coffee, and I don't know if you call it juicing brewing, but
what if we start a new trend?
All right, we'll see about that.
So let's pick up here, Exodus chapter 24.
Oh, we gotta talk about what we're eating and drinking.
Oh yeah, I forgot we gotta do that first.
Yeah,
My bad.
It's been such a long time, we don't even know what we're doing anymore.
Yeah, bear with us. So what do you got?
I got, I don't even know how to describe this. It's the original Bulldog root beer. And that's, I guess, literally the brand name.
Where did you find that one?
This is one of the ones I got at, I bought like 30 to 40 root beers
out in
Oregon, at a root beer store. So they specialized in all of these unique root beers and sodas. And so there was a bunch you can only get there. So yeah, I've never heard of this. I will see if it's good.
Yeah. And then I guess I got a Bigfoot barley wine, which...
You don't sound impressed, but you don't get to say your opinion yet.
Yeah, I have no idea what it even is.
Okay, it's a barley wine, right? There you go.
Who knows?
And what did we eat there?
All right, we had a Johnsonville queso blanco recipe con jalapeno smoked sausage.
Yes, it's quite a mouthful. But,
it is.
We'll have our thoughts on that. So now we can now that we've done that, we did the whole Brandon has to open this on camera.
Here we go. There you go.
I definitely opened it. I gotta get. Oh man, this one's hard to open. We gotta edit this in post.
Oh no, you'll get it.
Oh, my hand's on fire. Oh man, it's like welded shut.
It's welded shut.
Man, okay. No, you try it. It's harder than you think. He handed me a specialized tool.
Yep.
Desperate times calls for desperate measures.
I wish everybody could have seen that.
Okay,
that was great.
Oh, wow, it didn't even make a noise. Well, it's open.
Just depressed over there.
All right, now that I have a taste, we can open. Oh, I can't say my opinion yet, but man,
no,
I have a good opinion on this one.
Well, you just kind of gave it away.
Well, it's a good opinion. Maybe it's a good opinion that it's terrible. All right. All my opinions are good. I don't know what we're talking about. All right. So we're opening up into chapter 24, which kind of sets the scene.
Yep.
I'm going to talk a lot about the sanctuary. So there is a lot at the end of Exodus going to be about first instructions about how to build a tabernacle and what to build, which covers like 25, 26, 27, a little bit of 28, 29, and is like priest outfits. And then 30 is a little bit more about that. And then 31 has instructions of who to build it, who will be building it. So that's all there. And then there'll be a 3-chapter break, which tells a narrative. And then it goes into, well, you have the instructions. Now they just describe building it. So the later chapters repeat, often almost word for word, what's happening in the earlier ones.
Yep.
Because essentially it's saying that the Israelites took it seriously and they are following the instructions to the letter, which is often why the words are often to the letter. So we're covering that too as well, and we'll have like comments maybe we'll have about it.
Yeah.
Let's dive right into 24.
All right. I mean, since this is so much material, we're not going to...
Yeah, we realistically
everything.
can't read a ton. We probably could pull out parts to read, but we'll basically like summarizing just because we're covering in one way like 10, 12 chapters.
Right. So I actually just want to go right over into verse 12 of chapter 24. Now the Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and remain there, and I will give you the stone tablets with the law and the commandment which I have written for their instruction." So Moses arose with Joshua, his servant, and Moses went up to the mountain of God. But to the elders he said, "Wait here for us until we return to you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a legal matter, let him approach them." Then Moses went up to the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. And the glory of the Lord rested on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. And on the seventh day he called to Moses from the midst of the cloud. And to the eyes of the sons of Israel, the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a consuming fire on the mountaintop. And Moses entered the midst of the cloud as he went up to the mountain, and Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So there's a lot there, but there's something really significant leading into these next chapters with the tabernacle. Moses was able to meet with the Lord one-on-one in what would be considered a holy place, right? And I think that's just a very unique part that leads up into, I guess, the tabernacle, the sanctuary, right? The holy place.
In the story of Exodus, we have the Israelites. They're starting in this situation of like sin and slavery to the things of this world, and they're now transitioning to, instead of being slaves of sin and slaves of Pharaoh, they're transitioning to servants of God.
Yep.
And so, how do you now, once living in darkness, do you live in the light? How do you do that? And so we talked about the laws that they have to readjust how they live in light of God living with them.
Yep.
And so now we're going to be talking about the sanctuary that is essentially where earth is going to be meeting heaven.
Yes.
And so we have this kind of image of this holy place of heaven transcending down onto this mountain where Moses is able to go up and meet with God, and therefore that connection of earth to heaven is going to be in Mount Sinai, and it's the instruction place to which they're going to have the tabernacle, the sanctuary. So...
yeah, so I'm gonna read these first 9 verses because there's a couple things in here that I want to mention. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Tell the sons of Israel to raise a contribution for me. For every man whose heart moves him, you shall raise my contribution. And this is the contribution which you are to raise from them: gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet material, fine linen, goat hair, ram skin dyed red, porpoise skins, acacia wood, oil for lighting, spices for the anointing oil, and for the fragrant incense, onyx stones, and setting stones for the ephod and the breastpiece, and let them construct a sanctuary for me, that I may dwell among them, according to all that I am going to show you, as the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all its furniture, just so you shall construct it." So I read this little passage for one reason, because with all these different materials, bless you.
Sorry, I tried to sneeze off camera, then I hit the mic.
That was great. So gold, let's talk a little bit about some of these materials real quick. So gold, one of the ways that gold was viewed back then was, in a sense, of perfect purity, which is why the Ark of the Covenant, the mercy seat, the table of showbread, the lampstand, so menorah, they were all made of gold to represent perfect purity. And not just that, but it also symbolized God's presence and his holiness among people. One of the things that that I don't know if treasured is a good word or cherished might be better. One of the things that they cherished was that the symbol of God's worth and majesty was able to also be recognized with the gold. And then you get into, there's some silver, which is reflective of redemption and purification. So that could even be related in, a slave of darkness to a slave of light. You go through this purification process. And a lot of the references in that you see in Zechariah chapter 13 in the ancient times, where silver was a huge commodity, and for it to be more valuable, it had to be purified. So it had to be heated up. All the slag had to be taken off, which is the impurities, and then it became worth more. So this is a way of symbolizing, hey, we're going through a purification process. It's symbolic of redemption. Then the other thing I wanted to bring up too, because there's a lot of material here, is, and I'm sure not a lot of people are going to care about this, but the acacia wood. It's resilient, incredibly durable, insect resistant, which I'm not sure a lot of people know that. But it is such a strong wood. And what is super interesting about it is that as it grows, with some trees, have you ever seen them chop down and the rings kind of get weird? Like there's some weird growths. Acacia wood doesn't do that. It's perfect all the way through. There's no weird little offshoots.
So it's like it slowly grows and therefore is dense.
Very, very, very dense. Yep. So one of the things that symbolized to them was God's ongoing provision of his presence, which is a massive thing, because what you see with Moses meeting God, he's meeting him in his presence. So that wood was used for a lot of the furniture, and then gold and silver were laid over top of it. But it's to be resilient, that those things would never, perish, that they would never be broken or whatever, but that it would remain for all time. Now, that's not necessarily the case, but some of these materials, are incredibly unique because there is so much symbolic nature to them. So you have anything on that, Brandon?
Nah, you had a lot of good comments. Yeah.
Yeah. So, after the offerings for the sanctuary, then we get into the Ark of the Covenant, which, it was, again, made of acacia wood, right? So to be in God's presence, overlaid with gold, so to signify purity and all this good stuff. But, what would one important thing be about the Ark of the Covenant if you wanted to tell somebody?
It's referred to a couple of times as the mercy seat, but it's not like representing a chair. The imagery is of a royal variety of a footstool, where kings want to have their feet rested on something nice, and so they would have ancient Middle Eastern cultures would have a throne, and then there would be a footstool for them to put their feet on. And so that footstool represents where God is meeting man, where heaven is meeting earth, that this Ark of the Covenant was going to be a container for a variety of the important things that represent the covenant relationship between God and man, is where God meets them personally.
Yeah.
And so that this Ark of the Covenant as kind of this footstool for where the divine personality of God meets with his people to be among them, is what it's representing. And so that a part of that is, it's not like the entirety of God is housed here.
Right.
It's where God meets them and they can meet him. And so, and then obviously the Ark of the Covenant, I think this is pretty more common knowledge. It is going to be in the most holy place, the Holy of Holies. So the tabernacle, for those that aren't immediately familiarized with it, is a big tent. And when I say big, it's actually not crazy big because there's actually not a lot of items in it.
No, wasn't it only 30 or 40 feet wide.
Yeah,
by
I got
100
I
or
got the
something?
dimension. So it is likely 46 feet long,
Okay.
15 feet wide, and 15 feet high. And so that is like not a gigantic place.
No.
And that's because it's mainly it only houses like 4 items.
Yeah.
It's a very religious center, and it also needed to be mobile because they're
Yeah.
walking around, and they're gonna be walking around a lot with it.
Right. And it being portable or mobile also signifies them taking God's presence with them, carrying the Lord with them as they travel, and they can meet wherever they want. So now they're in constant communication.
Yeah. Well, you got to carry it around, so that's why everything's on poles.
I know.
So yeah.
What that connection actually goes well, like as we get into verses 23 through 30, the table of showbread. Again, that's meeting God, the connection between creator and created, sharing in a divine supper, so to speak, where they're breaking bread with the Lord and sharing that connection. What we have here
the ancient Etruscan cultures had like areas that people could like eat and congregate and fellowship before they go and meet the king.
Yep.
Like kind of like, and like I don't know what a modern equivalent of that would be. Like if you're super fancy, I guess you could have like a welcoming room. It's fancy mansions have something like this, don't they? We neither of us live in a fancy mansion.
No.
But like it's like a greedy Sam's in a different room. Sam, what is the room called that fancy people have that they welcome guests in? A foyer.
A foyer with appetizers.
A foyer is where poor people have, I guess. And it's where you put your shoes.
So a foyer and a foyer are different?
I don't think so.
One has food and one doesn't?
Maybe.
A table of showbread.
Regardless, this is where the priests can come together and meet before God, and there's some amount of like fellowship and community aspect that's being communicated. And then that is the most holy of holies is only going to have the Ark of the Covenant, which is where God is meeting. They go in there once a year.
Yep.
But this other part is going to be has more of a ceremonial use that's more frequently used. But the priests are the only ones that are still going into this. So there's that table in there, and there's also the lampstand.
Yeah, and that's something I do want to mention, because now we're getting into verses 31 through the remainder of the chapter through verse 40. So the lampstand has a really cool thing with it. So the lampstand, which would have been what we would call a menorah today, it symbolized the tree of life in the garden. That's what it was supposed to symbolize, was the tree of life. Because it gives light, it gives life, only from God, obviously, but it was the closest thing that they could have in the desert that would symbolize a tree of life, would be the lampstand. So modern times, the menorah. Anything on that you want to?
No. Let's keep chugging ahead because there's a lot to cover.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's curtains of linen, and there's curtains of goat hair, and so it's a tent. So you need to have coverings, and so there's like outside coverings and an inside covering. So the most holy of holies is separated, so like you can't see it. You're not supposed to go in there. It's just because it's very, very holy, and you're going into the presence of God. And if you treat that improperly and as mundane as normal, you might end up dead. People touch the Ark of the Covenant in the wrong way, they're dead. People go into the most holy of holies the wrong way, they're dead, because they're not recognizing that they're going into this most holy of places, that they're coming to before God as if they're going before God into heaven.
Right.
So there is one interesting thing that this was from a commentary. I definitely didn't think of it, but as there's different layers. Like, so the further you get out in the materials that's covering, the more mundane or of this world it's in. So like the closest, most inner layers are made of linen, so like made of plants, and then it's going to be made out of wool from like goats or
Yep.
and whatnot. So like from living animals, and then it's going to be the hides of those animals. And so the further you get out from the exterior of this tabernacle, it has the functional use of you want the softest material on the inside and the hardest on the outside because they're in a desert. But it also just has that kind of like symbology of like of sacredness of like when there's a sacrifice that had to be made that needs to be separated.
Right, absolutely. And to go off of that, the linens, the fine linens, they it really represented God's holiness and his perfect righteousness, whereas the outer stuff, it's it's got scars, it's got hairs, all that stuff, but inside it was perfect, and it reflected the beauty and the glory of God to them.
You got thoughts on the colors?
Yes, I actually do. So the blues, heavenly and divine, that was a representation. The color blue is often a representation of the heavens, or a symbol of God's divinity and his heavenly nature. It also, the blue yarn reflected the inaccessibility of God in his purity and holiness, but it also reflected his desire to be near his people. So the color blue is really important. The purple for royalty and kingship, it also reflects God's sovereignty and his royal priesthood. Scarlet would be reflective of sin and atonement. So we would think, the atoning blood of Christ is where that would come from. And you'd see that in Isaiah chapter 1, starting around verse 18. When we start getting into some of the other stuff, like the skins that are dyed red, and there was a couple different ones, ram skins, badger skins, pretty much anything they could get. But we also see a sacrifice and atonement in those skins, and then dyeing them red symbolizes the purification of the blood, right? So atonement and obedience would probably be the two big things. So with any time that you would see like a badger skin, which is still used on the tabernacle, but way on the outside, that is to reflect God's protection over the people.
There we go. So the continuing to chapter 26, they get some like instructions of like how to build it and like what parts go where.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem as necessary to read. We kind of already summarized the ending of chapter 26 when it comes to that partition between the holy and the most holy of holies, where the Ark of the Covenant is the most holy of holies. But then the table across with the lampstand across from it go in the entryway, the foyer, of this tabernacle, of the sanctuary. So we can go into, I think, chapter 27 and cover the bronze altar and that the courtyard.
Yeah. Do you want to read?
Well, do you have any thoughts on? I mean, there's poles to carry it around. Things are made of bronze. What are your thoughts on the bronze altar?
So let's see here. I got to find my note on this because there is something with bronze. Bronze is not as pure as gold and silver, right? So right here in 27, 1 through 8, what you see is a reflection with bronze of judgment. Bronze always signified judgment because most altars that would have a burnt offering, it was to either purify, redeem, whatever it may be, but that's where sacrifices for sin were made. So bronze had a really negative outlook as far as something that could be used as a necessity, so to speak. It couldn't be an interior thing all the time. There was times that it could, but bronze was always related to judgment. And I found that really interesting. And actually where I found a little bit more on that was digging into 2 Corinthians 5, chapter 5. And Jesus reminds believers how he bore God's judgment in their place. And so you look at that sacrifice that Jesus was himself, And then you look back at these sacrifices, and bronze is a common factor in it, that it brings on judgment. But that's what I would have to say about the bronze altar. And then the court of the tabernacle. That's I find it very interesting that there is some separation that you see in the tabernacle, inner outer courts, but that all again is to align with a purification process to get into the Holy of Holies. You think of like
you have to change
pilgrimage
to as you approach God.
Right.
There has to be because it's holy. It's not
Right.
mundane, and so there needs to be a change that you recognize that I cannot go there unless I'm presenting myself in the right way,
right,
in the right circumstances.
Right. So one thing I was thinking about when I was actually reading on this and doing some research on it was it really reminds me of the pilgrimage that we all have as a believer of our sanctification. It's not just an overnight thing. It's a lifelong journey that, we have to go through until we are home with the Lord. Not easy, right? But as you go through life, you have changes. You may go forward a little bit, then you come backward, then you go forward, then you come backward. But you have these, the sockets, I think that they're called, which is foundation points for the tabernacle. And, we have points too, which we could go back and reflect on, which would be considered a socket. So we've learned how to read the word. We've learned how to study the word. We've learned how to reiterate it to people. And then now all of a sudden we're learning how to have deeper faith in it. And now the Bible becomes something that's not just a written book, but the living word of God inside of our heart that's transforming. So the courts, the inner and outer courts, really made me reflect on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no. Well, we don't have enough time to head into chapter 38. 28. Man, we need to pick up
Brandon.
the pace.
Hey.
we covered only 4 chapters.
I thought we did pretty good.
No, we did pretty good. We
have to give ourselves a little credit.
We'll have to pause here, and you'll have to pick up on the next episode as we cover the priest's garments and so many more things.
Part 2.
The consecration of the priest, sacrifices food for the priest, altar of incense, the incense, new anointing oil. Who's going to build this all?
We got a lot.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover.
Maybe it'll be a part 3 or I don't know.
Part 3 or let's see.
All right. Well, I hope that everyone joins us on part 2. Thank you again for listening in on Bible Brats and Brew with your hosts, Brandon and Greg.